How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Yud Tes, Daf 19 of Masechta Gittin. Friends. Okay, we're going to start on Daf Yud Tes Aleph, about 5 lines to the page. We're going to start a new Mishnah. It talks about different inks and things that you can use for writing the get and other exciting things. Alright. It says the Mishnah on Daf Yud Tes Aleph, about 5 lines into the page. Bakol kosvin givaldik. You could write a get with whatever the heck you want, right? Bakol kosvin b'dio, basam, basikra, v'kumus, v'kankantom, v'chodover shel kayam. Anything that lasts. Wait, let me get you some. I know the Chevra likes the exact translations over here. So you want, you get. So with ink, with paint, with red pigment, with gum, or with copper sulfate. Thank you. That's the Art Scroll translation. With anything be'etzem sheu shel kayom, anything that lasts. Ein kosvin, lo b'mashkin, v'lo b'meiperis, not with different liquids or fruit juices, v'lo b'chol davar she'einu miskayim, not with anything that won't last. Right? We need proper ink for a sort of long-term document. Okay, gewaldig. Okay. Alakol kosvin, and you can write a get on any sort of canvas and any medium. Ala ola shel zayis, you can write a get on an olive leaf. Vala keren shel pareh, you can write a get on the horn of a cow. V'nosin lo es hapar, just give her the whole cow. Al yad shel eved, v'nosin lo es eved, you can write a get on the hand of an eved and just give the eved to your wife. Reb Yossi Aglili Omer, but says Reb Yossi Aglili, ein kosvin lo al dover shel sheish bo ruach chaim, says Reb Yossi Aglili, you may not write a get on a live organism, on a living organism, v'lo al ha'ochlim, and not on foodstuffs, not on food. Okay. Now I'm going to pick up the Art Scroll in order to give precise translations of the following lines. Diosa, ink, refers to black ink which maintains its color on parchment. Sama, paint, refers to orpiment, a yellow arsenic. Sikra, Omer Rabbi Bar Bar Chana, regarding red pigment, says Rabbi Bar Bar Chana, Skarta Shma, its name is really Skarta. Komos Kuma, gum, refers to gum Arabic, which is used in the manufacture of ink. Kankantom, regarding copper sulfate, Rabbi Bar Bar Chana, Shmuel, Charta de Ushkefi. This is also known as shoemaker's blackening. Very interesting stuff. Okay. So the Mishnah had said, and anything that is long lasting. What is this coming to include, right? Meaning we listed a whole bunch of stuff, right? Sam, kankantom, sikra. What's missing? That and anything that's lasting, like what? So the Tani Reb Chanina, to include that which Reb Chanina taught, ksavo b'meitarya v'afotzo. If you wrote the get with dirty collected rainwater or with gallnut juice, kosher. The get is valid. Okay, because I guess it lasts. Tani Reb Chia taught ksavo ba'aver. If you wrote the get with a lead solution, some kind of water that you dissolved lead in it and you use that as an ink. Bishchor v'shichor, with charcoal or with shoemaker's blackening. Kosher. It's kosher. Alright. I'm transitioning back to the regular Gemara. Alright. Well, Itmar. Here we go. Nice little mini sugi over here. Itmar was taka stated. Hamayver dio al gabi sikra b'Shabbos. Ho ho. So, if it's Shabbos, and you have some writing that was written in sikra with this red ink. Now, red ink is not as geschmack as dio, as black ink. So you have some stuff written in red ink, and you write over it, right? You trace the letters. You write on top of them, right? You over trace the letters. Is that a way to explain it? Like if it said apple in red ink, you now write on top of it apple, but in black ink. You cover it with dio. Okay, so Amar Dio Gabi Sikra, if you had something written in Sikra, and on Shabbos you write on top of it with Dio, Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish Tarvayu, Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish agree, Chayiv Stein, that the fellow would be Chayiv 2 korban chatases, Achas Mishum Kosev, Achas Mishum Mochik, one for writing, because you're writing, with the Dio, but also for erasing. You're erasing the Sikra, and you're then writing the, let's just say the word apple, okay? So you had apple written in Sikra, and you're writing apple on top of the Sikra with Dio. So you're chayiv for kosei, for writing the word apple in Dio, but also for erasing the word apple that was written in Sikra. And the halacha is that, right, mochek al manas lichtov shtei osios is chayiv, that you're chayiv for mochek if you erase something with the intention of then writing. If you only erase it just to get rid of it, that would be mekalkel, and you would be potter avalosser, but potter. But if you erase something with the intent of writing, then you're chayiv. So here clearly, if we're saying that writing on top of the red ink with the black ink is essentially erasing the red ink, you're then you're erasing it with obviously the intention of writing, because you're mamish writing on top of it. So you're going to be chayiv for erasing, but also going to be chayiv for writing. Fine. Dio al gabe Dio, Sikra al gabe Sikra, but if the word apple was already written in Dio, and then you write apple on top of the word apple also in Dio, or if it was written in Sikra and you write on top of it also in Sikra, potter, in that case you're potter, because you're not really changing anything. It's basically the same as it was before. The word apple written in either Dio or Sikra. Sikra al gabe Dio, what if you write with Sikra on top of Dio? So you had the word apple written in Dio, and then you write over it the word apple in Sikra. Amri la chayv, amri la potter. Some say chayv, some say potter. Okay, where am I? Amri la chayv, amri la potter, amri la chayv. So the ones who say that you would be chayv mocheku, you'd be chayv for mocheku. You would not be chayv for kosef, right? Because Dio is a more choshev ink than Sikra, so you're not really writing anything new. If anything, you're making the writing worse. But according to this opinion, it would be mochek, because you're essentially erasing this higher quality Dio ink and overwriting it with Sikra ink. You're basically erasing what was there before. Amri la potter mikalkalu. The opinion says that that you'd be potter for that, because you're only you're only making things worse. Right. It was initially written in Dio. Now you're writing on top of it in Sikra. That's not like a positive kind of writing. So you're not going to be chayiv for kosev, and you're also not going to be chayiv for mochek, because as I mentioned before, you only chayiv for mochek if it's with the intention of writing. But we're saying that writing Sikra on top of Dio isn't necessarily considered writing anyways, so you're going to be entirely potter. But according to the first opinion that said you'd be chayiv, at the end of the day there is some writing there, so it would be right there is Sikra writing at the end of the day, so therefore you would be chayiv for mochek, for erasing the word that was written in Dio with the intention of writing, right? Meaning there is still something there at the end of the day, therefore you'll be chayiv for mochek. But Rish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan. So now things get a shtickle interesting. Rish Lakish asks a kasha from Rabbi Yochanan. What's his kasha? Edim she'en yodim lachtom. So what if you have witnesses who don't know how to sign? Can you write, right? So let's say you have a get and you have two witnesses, but the witnesses don't know how to sign. So can you write out their names for them in Sikra, and then they'll write on top of that in Dio, right? So and then they will sign on top of it with Dio. Do we consider the writing on top of the top layer of the writing that the witnesses who don't know how to sign their names are going to be sort of tracing on top, right? So people will write their names for them in Sikra, and then they write on top of that in Dio. Is that considered writing? Eno ksav, or do we say that this top level, kind of just writing on top of the Sikra, would not be considered writing? Amle eno ksav. So Rabbi Yochanan says it would not be considered writing. And here's where things get interesting. Omerle, so Rish Lakish says to Rabbi Yochanan, "V'aloli madteinu rabbeinu ksav elyon ksavlin in Shabbos." But Rabbi Yochanan, didn't you teach us that on Shabbos, if you have the same exact situation, right? The word apple was written in Sikra, and you write on top of it with Dio, we said that, right, it says Rabbi Yochanan v'Rish Lakish Tamar Tavad, that everybody agrees that you'd be chayev twice, right, for Kosef and for Mochek, and yet over here, right, so it definitely sounds like you are, the top, that dio on top of Sikra is certainly considered writing, and you're chayev 2 korbanos on Shabbos. So then it should be also considered writing with regards to a get, and therefore if you have 2 witnesses who don't know how to sign, we should be able to write their names for them in Sikra and have them right on top of it in dio. Now listen to what Rabbi Yochanan answers Rish Lakish. I don't really know what to make of this answer. It seems like a pretty radical answer. Wow. I'm not really sure what to make of this response. It sounds like Rabbi Yochanan is saying, is like, look, we were talking theoretical halacha. Right? We were saying, look, theoretically, if on Shabbos a person wrote with dio on top of Sikra, theoretically you should be chayiv twice, once for Kosef, once for Mochek. Would I then say, based on that he should, if there was a Beis HaMikdash, that he would have to actually bring 2 korban chatases? I don't, right, what does it say? Just because we're giving theory, nights and maisa, would we actually do a maisa? Would we actually bring a korban in the Beis HaMikdash, potentially chulin la'azara, if it's not actually true? No, I was talking theory, but actual lemaisa, I don't know about that. And therefore, when Rish Lakish says to Rabbi Yochanan, so therefore, Rabbi Yochanan is saying that when it comes to a get, don't write their names for them in Sikra and then have them right on top of it in dio. And even though Rabbi Yochanan had said that on Shabbos it would be considered writing, and you would be chayev korban chatos. But still, don't do that by a get, because just because I said by Shabbos that you'd be chayiv doesn't actually mean that you're actually chayiv, that you would actually have to bring korban chatases, and it doesn't necessarily mean that by a get it would be considered a valid way to sign a get, that it would actually be considered writing and signing. I'm not really sure what to make of that answer. What does it mean? I mean, Rabbi Yochanan, on the one, there was no indication earlier when Rabbi Yochanan said chayiv shtaim that it was just a theory, that it wasn't actually lemaise. And now Rabbi Yochanan saying, no, I was saying in theory chayiv shtayim, but I wouldn't say so lemaise. Anybody have any ideas? I mean, super. What do I do with that? It's very, very interesting. Itmar stated, Edim shein yodim lachtom. If you have witnesses who don't know how to sign, Rav Omar, so says Rav, mekarin loim niar cholok. So take a blank paper, and you etch their names for them into the paper. And then these witnesses who don't know how to sign fill in the etchings with ink, and then memele they have their signature. Right? Somebody etched out. Right? Just fill in these things, and you'll sign the thing. Shmuel Amar says Shmuel be'aver. You can use lead. Basically, you can, trace their name you can write their name for them in lead, and then they'll write on top of it with dio. Be'aver salkadaitich, what, you really think that other people could write their names for them in lead and just have them right on top of it? Ve'atani Reb Chia, but didn't Reb Chia teach earlier, ksavo be'aver, if you write it with lead, be'shachur v'shichur, with charcoal, or with, what do we say, shoemaker's something? Shoemaker's black or something? Kosher? So we say it's kosher. So meaning, from the fact that aver is an actual kosher ink to write with, so then, meaning you can't have somebody else sign their name for them, and meaning if I want to sign a document, I could theoretically sign this document with this lead. Now you can't sign my name for me, and so Shmuel is saying that if somebody doesn't know how to sign, you can just have somebody else write their name for them in lead, and then he'll write on top of that. But how can you have somebody else write their name for them in lead? Lead is a valid ink to sign with. That means that somebody else is actually going to be signing his name for him. That's a problem. You have to use something that isn't an actually valid for signing, and then have the aide sign on top of that. How can you use lead? That's actually a valid ink. So, lo kasha, it's no problem. When Shmuel is suggesting that he write the fellow's name for him in lead, it means with like actual like a piece of lead, like a pencil, and that would not be valid. And so you could write the fellow's name for him in lead, and then he could write on top of that. But b'maya da'avra, if you take lead powder and mix it with water and make an ink, well then that would actually be proper writing, and then you should not have somebody write with sort of lead ink. And then you shouldn't have somebody write somebody else's name for them with lead ink. Rabbi Bo suggests that what they should do is, if you have these witnesses who don't know how to sign, so other people can write their name for them with meimilin, with gallnut water. But didn't Reb Chanina say that if you use dirty rainwater or gallnut water, it's take a kosher ink? So again, we have the same question: how can you write somebody else's name for them with gallnut ink if it's a kosher ink? So lokasha had the office or the office. So it depends, right? So it depends. If the parchment you had already treated with gallnut water, but they would do is they would take the parchment and they would treat it with gallnut water, so that basically would make the parchment very sensitive to like erasing. So that if somebody tried to pull a quick move and erase anything or make changes, it would be obvious. So if it was already treated with gallnut water, and then you write on top of that with gallnut water, so then that would be okay, right? Meaning if the cloth was already, if the parchment was already treated with gallnut ink, and then you have witnesses who don't know how to sign, so then you write their name for them with this gallnut ink, which isn't really considered ink because since it was already treated with gallnut, you're not really going to be able to see it, and then you can have the witness right on top of that, then that would be fine. But if the parchment was not treated with gallnut ink, and then you write their name for them in gallnut ink, well, that would be a problem because you're writing their name for them. Okay, fine. Right, the ein meimilin, I'll write ein meimilin agabe meimilin. You can't put gallnut ink on top of gallnut ink because it won't be noticeable. So that's why you could do that for somebody else. But yeah, if the parchment was not already treated with gallnut inks, and you wouldn't be able to write it for somebody else in gallnut ink, because then it would actually be writing their name for them. Rav Papa Omer Baruch, Rav Papa suggests that you use saliva, that you use spit to write their name for them and have them write it on top of that. V'chein orile Rav Papa le Papa Torah. And similarly, Rav Papa said to Papa Torah to Baruch to use spit to for if you want to do it for somebody else. And then have them trace on top of it. Now, all this business about having witnesses who don't know how to sign, and we're trying to figure out, you have these guys who don't know how to sign, and they need to sign a document, and okay, so what do? You can etch it out, you can have, write with other sort of not real inks. That's by Gittin. Aval b'shtaris, lo, but not by other documents. There was a fellow who with other documents, he had people sign who didn't know how to sign. V'nagdi Rav Kana flogged him. Rav Kana flogged the fellow. Rav Kana he gave him a flogging, and that's because he allowed people to sign who didn't know how to sign. Right, so only by a get can you sign. Can you have people who don't know how to sign? But by other documents, it would not be allowed, and we'll see in a second, in a minute or so. It's because of takonas agunis, right? Because we want to, it's important to make sure that women don't get stuck in their marriages, right? They need a get to release them from their marriage, and we want to remove hurdles as much as possible. And if the only witnesses we have don't know how to sign, well, let's figure out how we can enable them to sign so that they can sign. But by other documents, you find people who know how to sign. Okay. Tani Kavosid Rav, we have a brisa supporting Rav who said that when you have witnesses who don't know how to sign, you can etch out their names for them on a paper and have them fill in the etchings with ink. So Tani Kavosid Rav, Eidim Shen Yodim Lachtom, that if you have witnesses who don't know how to sign their names on a document, Mekayin Loem Niar Cholok, so we etch for them on a blank paper, and they fill in the etches with ink, and that is how they sign, just like Rav said. When do we say this? Begite Noshim, that's specifically by gets by Gittin Noshim, Aval b'shechuri avodim, but by get shichur, ushar kol ashtaris, and any other kind of document, im yodin likros v'lachtom. So he adds now another Indian over here is to read. If they know how to read and to sign, chosmin, well then they can sign. V'im lav in chosmin. If they don't know how to read and to sign, so then they can't sign. Kriya mandchar shmei, to which the Gemara says reading came out of left field. We've been talking about signing the whole time. All of a sudden we're saying you also have to know how to read. So it's missing some words. This is how you have to read it. Edim shein yodim likros korin lifneim v'chosmim. So if you have witnesses who don't know how to read, they know how to sign. I guess they know how to make some kind of etching that's their etching, but they don't know how to read. So if they don't know how to read, korin lifneim. Right, we're going to see in a few minutes that some of the Amoraim, even when they got older, it was hard for them to see, it was hard for them to read. So if you have somebody who can't read but they could sign, so Korin Lifneim, so we read the document to them, V'chosmim, and then they can sign. V'she'en yodim lachtom, and if they don't know how to sign v'chulei, so then if they don't know how to sign, so then you can fill in the etches for them. Fine. You can etch things and they can fill it in. Amr Reb Shimon Gamliel, and says Reb Shimon Gamliel, when do we say that if they don't know how to read, we read it for them? If they don't know how to sign, then we can etch it for them. Gittin Noshim. That's by Gittin Noshim. Aval Shechuri Avodim, but by Shechuri Avodim, Ushar Kol Ashtaros, and other kinds of shtaros, Im Yodin Likros Vilachtom, if they know how to read and how to sign Chosmin, then they can sign V'im Lav. But if they don't, Ein Chosmin, then they do not sign. Amr Belazar, says Reb Belazar, my time with Reb Shimon Gamliel. How come Reb Shimon Gamliel says that specifically by Gittin Noshim you can have people who don't know how to sign? Shelo yu b'nos Yisrael agunis, so that you don't have b'nos Yisrael who want to get divorced. We don't have them getting stuck in marriages. Whoever can sign the document, we let them sign the document, even if they don't even know how to sign. We work it out for them. Amar Rava, says Rava, halacha Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, that the halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, that these people can sign by a get, but not by other documents. Rav Gamda mishmei de Rava Omar, says Rav Gamda in the name of Rava, ein halacha Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, that the halacha is not like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Ve'ela kaman k'Rabbanan, and who's it like? The Rabbanan, meaning that by all documents you can have people sign who don't know how to sign. But we said earlier that there was a fellow by other documents he let people sign who don't know how to sign it, and Rav Kana flogged him. Tirguma Akriya. No, Rav Gamda is saying that the halacha is like the Rabbanan with regard to reading, that by other documents you don't necessarily need to know how to read, right? Even if you're if you're unable for whatever reason, if you're unable to read, it's okay. So Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says that by other documents you have to be able to read and to sign. But says Rav Gamda that no, by other documents, yes, they have to know how to sign, but they don't, even if they are unable to read, that would be acceptable. Rav Yehuda mitzvah kari v'chasim. So Rav Yehuda, when he got older, it was very difficult for him to read, and nonetheless he would, really exert himself and try very difficult to be able to read documents before signing them. Amle Ula lo tzrichas. Ula says, hey, Rav Yehuda, take it easy on yourself. You don't actually have to be able to read the document. Rabbi Elazar Mara Eretz Yisrael. Because Rabbi Elazar was, Rashi says, Baki mikol chaver. Rabbi Elazar was greater than all of his friends, than his colleagues. Karu kame v'chosim, and they would read before him, and after he heard it, he would then sign. Rav Nachman karu kame safrei dayone, that Rav Nachman, the scribes of the court would read documents before him, v'chosim, and then he would sign them. V'davke Rav Nachman v'safrei dayone. So the article wanted to say that this is talking about one person reading in front of Rav Nachman. That in general you would have to have two people read the document before you could sign it if you're not reading it yourself. Rav Nachman had one person reading it before him, but it was one of the scribes of his court. Rashi points out that Rav Nachman was the son-in-law of the Reish Galusa, and he was appointed to be a judge by them, so he was a very authoritative figure. People were scared of him, and therefore they would not mess around, and they would make sure to read the document properly. Right? So Davka Rav Nachman v'safrei dainei. And so specifically Rav Nachman, who was appointed to the court by the Reish Galusa, and the court scribes who feared, who were sort of, I don't know what the right word is, feared, respected, but sort of would make sure to be accurate. The islu aimsa, that they have fear. However, Rav Nachman v'safrei achrine, but Rav Nachman with other scribes who don't necessarily have that same level of awe, or the scribes of the court, but with somebody who is not Rav Nachman, then my understanding is that you would need two people to read it for you. Rav Papa, if a Persian document came before him to Ovid Bar Kaos that was made in secular courts. It was written in secular courts, it was signed in secular courts. So Makri Lahu L'Shnei Nachrim, so you would have two Gentiles read the document for him, and they would read it for him separately, right? They would read it for him not without the knowledge of the other, right? Just to make sure that they are describing it or explaining the document the same way, but Masech L'Fitumo, sort of in an unofficial manner. I guess he would sort of kind of casually ask two Gentiles to read the document to him. And then based on how they explained it, if their stories were the same, were consistent, so then he would rely upon that document and even collect properties that had been sold since the document was in effect, and put a lien on that property. Rav Ashi says, Amrli Rav Huna bar Noson. Rav Huna bar Noson said to me, this is what a Maimer said, that if you have a Persian document that Yidden were signed on, you can rely upon that document and collect, if the fellow is not giving cash, right, if the borrower is not returning the cash, so then you can, if he sold any fields, you can go and take those fields away from the people who bought them. How could you have Jews sign a Persian document? They don't know how to read Persian. We're talking about people who do know how to read Persian. But we need, for a proper document, we need that the content is untamperable, and Persian documents can be tampered with. It's talking about where their documents were treated with gallnut water, so that it makes it very difficult to forge, to tamper with. But don't we need that at the last line, that at the bottom of the document, we basically sum up the important points? Okay, it's talking about a situation where that was in the document. Okay, so what's the chiddush? The kosher, that you can write a document in any language. Tanina, we already know that from a Mishnah. Get shiksavu ivris ve'edav yivanis. If you have a get that's written in ivris, and the witnesses are signed in Greek, yivanis ve'edav ivris, or the get is written in Greek, but the witnesses signed in ivris. Kosher, it's a kosher get. So we see that documents already can be written in any language. If it was from there, Gittin, well, I might think that specifically by a get. It can be written in different languages, but maybe not by other documents. So Kamash Milan, that other documents as well can be written in other documents, and we're saying Persian over here. Okay. If the husband gives the wife a blank paper, and he says to her, this is your get, she is divorced, because we're concerned that maybe he wrote it, it says a niyar, or a paper, like not a cloth, but a paper that's made from like different grasses and stuff, and maybe he wrote it in gallnut water and it kind of got absorbed in the document, but it's actually a valid document, so therefore she's divorced. We have a kasha. If a husband gives his wife a get, and she takes the get, she throws it into the sea, or into fire, or any other thing that ruins it, and now what do we do? Right? So he gave her the get, and then she just destroys it. And then he says, you know what that document was? That wasn't a get. Shtar pasimu, shtar manahu. It was a shtar pasim or a shtar manahu. Who could tell me what a shtar pasim is? So shtar pasim is basically if I ask you, hey, I want to look like a really wealthy individual. How can you write me a document that says that you owe me I don't know, $100,000. Right? Make it look like I gave you a $100,000 loan. Clearly, I'm a wealthy guy. I'm giving out $100,000 loans. So can you write me this document? No, it's not true. I didn't actually. I just want to look like a rich guy. Or a shtar amana, which is like I give you a document. Maybe I want to. And Rashi doesn't say this, but I think maybe like I want to look like a poor guy, right? I don't know. Maybe I don't want people coming after me for money. So I show, look, I have chovis all over the place. Look, go to Ruvain. You'll see he's got a document saying that I owe him $100,000, right? I have chovis. So whatever it is, right? If I give you a document that says that I owe you money. Now, I'm assuming, you're a good friend of mine. I'm assuming you're not actually now going to go to Beis Din and make you pay that money. So basically, he gives a document to his wife. She destroys it. And then he says to her, oh, by the way, that wasn't a get. That was one of these other documents. So Migoreshes, she's nonetheless believed Lo Kol Imenu L'Osra, and we can't believe him to say that she can't get married. No, she's divorced. Time at Ika Ksav. But the only reason why we say that she's divorced is because there was actually writing on the document. Holeka Ksav, lo. But if there's no writing on the document, such as over here where he's giving her a blank paper, then she would not be divorced. Kikamer Shmuel debodkinan le b'maya denora. So, but yes, when Shmuel says that she's divorced, right? If the husband gives his wife a blank document, she's divorced. It means that we first tested it out. We took some violet ink and put it on top of the document, and then the writing emerges. If the writing emerges, so then it means that it was written with gallnut water, and it just kind of got absorbed. If nothing emerges, lav klumus, so then it's garnished, and obviously she's not divorced. But even if letters emerge, hashta hu depalit, I could still argue that maybe they're only emerging now, right? They weren't there before. Shmonami chashinon kamer. So even Shmuel, he's not saying that she's actually divorced, right? He says chashinon, right? Maybe it's a proper get. Okay, fine. So I guess we probably have to take other measures to make sure that she's actually divorced. All right, friends, we're going to stop here. All right. Kind of technical daf a little bit, right? We talked about different inks and things that you could write a get with. There was an interesting sugya about writing on top of other things on Shabbos. If you write with dio on top of sikra, you'll be chayiv twice. Although we saw L'maisa Rabbi Yochanan says, even though I said you'd be chayiv, I don't actually mean that you would like actually be chayiv, and that you should actually bring korbanos. That's very, very, very interesting. And then we talked about if you write with dio on top of dio, sikra on top of sikra, you didn't actually change anything materially, so therefore you'd be potter. If you write with sikra on top of dio, it's machlokas. According to one opinion, you'd be chayiv for moche. According to the other opinion, you wouldn't be chayiv at all because it's mekalkal. All right, interesting stuff. Cheve, that was what was that? Daf Yud Tes, I think, of Masechta. That was Daf Yud Tes of Masechta. Gittin. I hope you enjoyed. Peace out.